So we're once again, thank you indeed for taking our time, and we hope that today's session and this opportunity for you to network amongst your peers will be a great event. It's myself, Saqib, and I have my colleague Mohammed as well from here. A lot of the faces are familiar, so it's good to meet you guys again. And I was telling my colleague Mohammed, who's been here almost 2 years in doing that. Now I understand I've been in this country for many years. But I just tend to know people. I'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce you to Mohammed Rushdie. Mohammed Rushdie has been very kind enough to moderate this session today.
I think we're getting there. I think there's more players that are coming up, and without the workaround, yes, that's in the paper, it's there. And I think technology is coming to support on that. So I think it's the best of what we can do with technology. And that's what I said. It's a very fast-paced challenge, very regulated. Yeah, the environment is quite fun to work.
They can provide sharing with you some kind of figures. You have to take it and reward it.
So taking customer feedback is definitely very crucial, right? And that's part of your. Is that embedded in your product strategy?
Definitely embedded in the agile project that we are building every day. The customer is giving feedbacks. We create a kind of form, kind of community, kind of blogs in which they are interacting. We are getting with them. For anything, testing feature, any workshop online. So we had a bit of challenge in COVID, of course, but I think it was fine.
Thank you.
I am digital marketing at Rackbank. We've been live for about 4 years now. And I do have one boy who's 11. I don't have pets yet.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that you yes, please say.
Hi everyone, I'm Banani Malhotra. I'm the Director of Marketing for Rackbank. I'm a veteran at Rackbank actually. I'm blessed with 2 girls, and that's full stop for me. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Have you heard about Backbase before, or?
In passing, yes.
Okay.
No.
I'm talking about you guys all the time.
So nice to meet you. So nice to meet you. I see you have 3 representatives from Rackbank. Thanks a lot, Frederick, for making this happen.
Okay.
Would you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Frederik de Melker. I'm responsible for the retail activities at Rackbank. Family-wise, I have 3 kids, and they live all over the world. So somewhere it went wrong, I guess. But when I find my friends, I see dots everywhere. Let's see.
Some information.
Yeah, pleasure. I think, the market is very much now clear and known, especially in the digital area. I think, but the main thing in my view and issue we need to look at, which is the copy paste. I think most of the digital leaders now in the market, they are copying paste, but the problem is not to copy and paste digital platforms and equipments here and there. I think we need to deep dive into the customer needs, not only by checking the feedback. I think we need to deep dive and work more and more in the analytical reports to understand more the customer needs. Based on the customer needs, we can tailor whatever platform we can need in this market, in this region. And in my view, I think, I don't want to call it like showstopper, but we can call it some limitation from the regulators, which is available right now in the Middle East, which is, in my view, is the main challenge that now we need to look at. And maybe we need to work more with our central bank to understand their vision and maybe making their decisions and regulations more black and white. I think most of the CIOs here agrees with me on this challenge right now that we are facing. Once we clear out, I think we need to clear out, not teaching them how to do, with my respect, but we need to clear some regulations, which is still gray area, where we need to look at to work more and get up to the speed worldwide, globally, to be as leaders in digital. I think we don't miss any experiences, we don't miss any human resources. What we miss only the black and white clear regulation from our regulator. I don't want to put everything under regulator. We have a lot of other challenges we look at, but right now, this is what I think we need to focus on. Thank you.
Before we kick start, I think a few words from yourself, Rafiq, on you guys are everywhere on the social media. I'm not sure if you congrats to the new launch of the new app. Something.
Yeah, so just maybe to react on this point, I think indeed regulation is a limitation, but I think there is a lot possible within the regulation that is already there. If you just look at the customer experience and what the customer wants, right? And I think every customer in the world has the same need. There's one Facebook in the US, as in Brazil, as here. It's one user experience, it's the same thing, right? So why would banking be different? That's my opinion. So what we have done, we have basically looked at every single thing that a customer can do with the bank, which we call a customer journey, and we have redesigned that completely within the limitations that are there of regulation. And I think we've come a very long way. Now, what is really triggering me or keeping me awake is, okay, everyone is copy-pasting that because that is something that you can do either via Backbase or yourself, it doesn't matter, but it is a model that can be copied. What is the next thing? And the next thing is not only around giving your products the same product that you already have in a slightly better experience in a digitized way. It is what value can you really add. So as Mashreq, we are really interested as well looking at the new thing which is around open banking, collaborating with partners, opening up your products, offering your products bundled with other services, consuming third-party services in your own application to make the experience more enjoyable. Because banking in the end is just banking. Right? How much time will a customer spend on your mobile banking and only doing banking? You log in, you see your account, you're out. Right? So that is a little bit what's keeping me awake now is, okay, the platform is there, we did the transformation, we're almost there, but now what? And that's more, I think, about opening up and collaborating with parties outside the banking sector. So that's
mentioned about regulations being a bit of a bottleneck. But that apart, I think this market lends itself to digital. And I'll tell you the reasons why. If you look at the penetration of smartphones and digital in this market, it's not the highest. And everybody has a smartphone. Even the people at the bottom of the pyramid seem to have a smartphone. The second thing is that this market is full of expats. And by definition, expats need to be in touch with their friends and family, and the best way that they use is either a smartphone or digital. So that is the second. And some of the infrastructure that we have here is world class, like things like UAE FTS, things like eKYC, biometric authentication. I think in more ways than one, this market lends itself to digital. And like Rafiq mentioned, we have progressed a considerable way in this part. But the next level is to innovate and see if we can innovate with partners, with regulators, with government entities, and add value to customers. And that's the way. And every time we look at it from that lens, a new innovation pops up saying, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that?
Great, thank you so much. I think there's a lot that has been done over the past few years, and I'd say probably more so the past few months or year. I think from my perspective, and also probably from maybe Standard Chartered Bank's perspective, I think what is critical is how we utilize these innovations. So at the moment, it's not so much around who has the most sophisticated platform. It's so much around how are we sweating those platforms. You can have the most modern, sophisticated, but if it's just sitting on the shelf and clients are not able to buy into it, are not able to migrate to adopt, then it just becomes a white elephant. And this time and this age that we are in, I think it's really an age of exponential growth. For those that are able to do it very, very well, we have seen, if I just give an example, like in Africa, Standard Chartered, we have had about 1 million clients, the whole of Africa, for a very, very long time. But with the new platforms and going with a new acquisition strategy, within 12 months, we managed to acquire 500,000 clients within a 12-month period. That is almost like 50% of what we had acquired over the years. And the same thing applies even today. I think And from my perspective, what needs really to come in and to change is the mindset. If you look at digital banks today, whether it's the main, core business or institution, it is how many people are we really allocating to the digital agenda, and are we really looking at it as a standalone pillar, or it becomes integrated as part of the business? How is corporate affairs coming in, compliance coming in, audit coming in, risk coming in? If everybody begins to think digital, from a client experience, you're not separating the two, where you have a big team that is focusing on other areas and they've got no clue what is happening on the digital platforms. The experience, you find that many times it becomes lacking, and for that reason sometimes clients begin to drop off. But if it becomes the main part of the business, then the whole institution begins to think digital first, and everybody's efforts, like we said, including regulators, then we are able to develop that part of the business and the channels much more effectively.
So one of the things that we were sort of contemplating before we were organizing this session was, which is the most important thing in today's COVID era? And we thought that it is about digital selling. Because now, say I'm a sales guy, if I wanted to be in that bucket, but we're all here as sales representatives in some form of shape, right? But now, because of the COVID, things have changed. We have to look out at new ways of selling. And specifically in the banking space, digital space holds a very crucial aspect. So we'll be talking about digital sales, in the bigger context. How can we hone that particular area? So Backbase, we work with more than 120 banks internationally. We're headquartered in Amsterdam, but we have offices around the world. Here in Dubai, we're based in the Internet City. We opened the hub almost 2 years back. We're around 10 people and we're growing, so we're hiring. Our ambition is to have customer success and partner and sales here in Dubai so that we can manage our customers very closely from here. Primarily, our customers are tier 1 and tier 2 banks, but now the recent wins we've done are also very challenger banks and digital banks that are completely digital. And again, as Backbase, we also believe in partnerships. So if there is a digital bank being sprung up, the core could be a company like Mambo or Corporation, etc. So in that, the point I'm trying to make here is that we're also in that space of really challenging digital banks. In the region, we take pride to say that we work with more than 9 banks now. These are some of the banks that we've partnered with on a long-term strategic mission. One of the most recent feathers in our activates have been with Kuwait International Bank. And Kuwait International Bank, we shook hands literally in the last quarter of 2020. Then we've got Arab Banking Corporation, which is a large bank headquartered in Bahrain. Ila Bank is a very nice challenger bank, specifically targeting the millennials. So I think you might have heard about them, but Ila has a really nice super digital app, and we're powering that completely into them. And then Qatar Islamic Bank, National Bank of Iraq, Capital Bank of Jordan, and National Bank of Bahrain. All right, from a analyst perspective, we're very proud to say that we've maintained our leadership positioning. So whether you take the likes of Resters or the Gartners of the world, we are there at the leaders quadrant. And for us as Backbase, some might not know us in full details, but we just do digital banking. And typically, sometimes we see our competition to be core banking companies who have done some sort of an acquisition in the digital banking. But for us, our bread and butter is digital banking. All right. So let's talk about what's happening in today's era. You guys must have been bored of seeing these slides for the last 1 year, COVID. So, when I saw this slide, I was like, not again. But yes, unfortunately, this is the reality. But, we saw this research done by BCG, and we figured out that what's happening in the current landscape during the pandemic, and what do we see what's going to happen post-pandemic. And what we found out that by all means, the adoption or the usage of mobile and online banking is going to increase even after the pandemic. Okay. However, and that's more towards self-servicing. Okay, so customers or we as humans, where we have more, where we have more capability to self-service ourselves, that channel will increase its usage. However, on the assistant channels like remote advisors or contact advisors, we see the post-pandemic, the usage is going to decrease. And I think part of that can also be attributed to the consumer behavior or the habits that will be developed. And we see branches and ATMs are definitely going out of the question. Perhaps not in near future, but quite soon we'll see branch might be an alien concept. This is my view, right? That's my view. And I've been here in UAE for almost 14 years now, and I've got like 5 different apps. But I've only been to the first bank that I started banking only twice in 14 years. So, that might be the case. Okay, so moving forward, we do see that, there's a nice trend, specifically in UAE, the usage of mobile apps is definitely increasing, both on the mobile and the online channel. In the region itself, Saudi Arabia is also doing a great job in that regards by virtue of the fact that they have a reasonable, large population size. So we see that this is to be there, and I think there will be more increase in mobile and online banking because of the COVID. I might sound like a broken record, but this is what it is. This is what is happening now. All right, so we've talked about COVID, but it's very also important to understand that what is the key thing that has to be taken out of here, right? So it is all about now customer loyalty. And based on the research, we found out that internationally, 12% of consumers tend to change their banks, right? And only 12% of those consumers are likely to be changing their banks. Having said that, retention of customers is relatively easy. But acquiring a new customer is probably the most difficult part. And I think you guys would probably agree to me because you do this on day and night, right? Would you sort of agree with me on that point?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right.
Acquiring customers is expensive.
Is expensive, right? Even in the challenger bank space or the digital bank space, which are completely digital, new tech stack, everything, it still costs them around on average $400 to acquire a new customer. I'm just fixing the. Yeah, that's fine. So I think the question that I had asked was if you could share a bit about your transformation journey and the key drivers and the timelines.
Sure. Thank you so much, Alba. I'll start about, talking about the transformation as such. I mean, the transformation is not something new. Stuff back when the industrial revolution started, the farmers industry back in the 1870s, followed by the automations and transformations, with assembly lines and such. And transformation happens in every industry, from refinery, the valves, to association, introducing the most basic technology of what was there as well, of virtual acceptability. So, and banks are not an exception to this. So, as an MBB, we started this journey back in 2017. We started looking at our legacy systems and fix our foundations. Our core banking system was 20 years old. So we started with this one. It was around 24 months project. But then we realized that 24 months project is too long to increase our digital offerings. So what we started to build is a decoupled state part and enterprise architecture. We had defined our target state, the roadmap, and the major projects. One of them was the digital platform coded using factors. So that's a brief where and what we've done in order for us to start our digital transformation. And again, that's from tools perspective. But the main element in this was started talking to customers, we started talking to hiring new teams, not both agile, also changes happen from technology perspective, from culture perspective.
Thank you, Ali. Ali, I would request if you come slightly closer to your mic again, if possible.
Yes, the mic is almost in my mouth. Yes, the mic now.
I think we have a larger audience here. So thanks indeed to share about your transformation journey. The other question I have is, what was the reason in your product roadmap to make customer onboarding as a priority for National Bank of Bahrain?
Thank you, Saul. I think I go first of what NBB slogan is. Our slogan is closer to you, and that means closer to our customers. That was the main driver for us to build a smooth and seamless digital onboarding. We focused a lot on UX, user experience. Every single screen that you can see is already validated, not only by the UX team or by the product owners. It goes back to real customers and make them verify that this is really works for them or not. It really makes no sense that the system of what you say is not if you are not providing granularity to your customers. Your customers is the core focus, and that was the main driver for us to start looking into the user experience exercises. And one of the main also elements was that our market segment today is for people with 50 years old and above. And that was not how we wanted to convert our customer segment to youth. So we started to think and to review non-customers and people who are our personas. So we started building personas and focus on these type of customers that we didn't have in MVP. So transformation happened on systems and transformation for businesses to have new market segments and that customer segments. And that was basically one of the main drivers to have a digital onboarding. People don't want to come to any branch anymore to have, although Bahrain is very small in population and size, even in MVP we have around 20 branches. Still people need to drive, to follow, they need to come, they need to sign around 6 to 8 papers. So it was struggling, so we said, listen, we have to do something about this. And that was one of the main points that we had to have in order for us to start the digital onboarding.
Thank you, Ali, for a very sort of valuable interpretation on how you made this happen. And I think this is only possible with the right technology and the right mindset. Would you like to also elaborate if you've done any benchmarking and where did you stand before and how do you stand now?
Yeah, I think we focused again on 3 pillars. And features within the app. The main pillar was the users, the users. So less steps to execute more intuitive user interfaces. That was one of the main pillars. The second one is implementation. Remove some compliance steps that are not really mandates. Reduce some steps, eliminate some steps. Use a different way of doing things. So innovation was another second. The third one was solar technology partner. That page. So
choosing the right technology is again one of the main pillars to have a seamless journey, to be honest. So on average, we reduce around 40% of number of actions that we have the customer used to do before.
Thank you, Ali. You're now very audible. We fixed the voice note. Apologies for a bit of a confusion. This was a mistake.
No worries.
So, Ali, let's talk about some of your benchmarks and where were you before and where do you stand right now. So I'm going to move to the next slide, and if you can please share your story there.
Sure. I mean, this is very obvious. I mean, any journey you do, you have to focus on how you enhance your customer experience, and you can clearly see here that the customers, in order for them to do an onboarding on a branch, they took 80 minutes, if not more, to open an account. While you do it through the app, it's 5.7 minutes. It was 50 steps between signing, filling forms, printing a card, blah, blah, blah. It was 28 steps. It took 1 day, and sometimes it took 3 days, and now you get it instantly. So I think that's one of the main pillars for us, is to how to increase or how to improve the customer experience. And I think number tough.
Absolutely, Ali. So this is more from your internal benchmarks. Have you done some sort of benchmarking from other banks?
Well, actually, yes. We've done a benchmarking with new banks, and you can see here. But before even talking about this, benchmarking, the ultimate goal was not really to benchmark ourselves against these new banks. The ultimate goal was to improve our customer journey. However, I mean, we've managed to reduce the number of steps, as you can see, from 50 to 28, which is head to Revolut. However, when you do number of steps, you have to keep in mind how to choose what kind of field. For example, if you use more data field, that is more time consuming if you use a selection field. If you use, for example, pictorial inputs, you take a selfie or scan your card, these take more time. So designing up to a field level is really what makes you differentiate from others. So again, if you really focus on the customers, and if you become very close to the customers, and you have a good UX team with a good and solid technology, I believe you can always challenge yourself and have a seamless journey to the customer.
Thanks a lot, Ali. I think this is definitely a great story you're sharing there. But is this all, or would you like to elaborate a bit more on what you achieved in terms of since you went live?
As I mentioned, Bahrain is very small. We are around 1.2 million in population. We launched this like a month and a half. And again, NBB is the biggest and market share in local market. And we did not expect, to be honest, this number to come. We thought that, they did import things, start onboarding less amount of people. But actually, it wasn't. I mean, it's picked up very quickly. Up to today, we have around 600 people onboarded that in 1.5 months. We have 500 debit cards issued, and for the seamless tracking to the customers, we have 12,500 active customers as of today has been migrated from our old app to the new app, and more than 20,000 downloads. So for us as an NBB, as in Bahrain, these numbers are really great numbers for a size of Bahrain and a size of NBB. So it was a good achievement in the first couple of weeks. So we are so proud as of today, and I think that's not targeting. We are targeting much more than this. But hopefully in our next roundtable, we can give you some more numbers and how we improved since then.
Yes, absolutely. I think we look forward to that. I think we were just discussing before you joined the call that customer retention is the most important aspect now. So in terms of retaining the customers, would you like to elaborate?
I have a question.
Yeah, we have. You want to ask? Please feel free to ask.
I just wanted to ask him, the 600 that you onboarded, were these fully digitally onboarded end to end, or was there people who dropped off halfway through? Was that a tele-assist or something, or were these fully digitally onboarded? That's my question.
Did you get the question?
Yeah, that's fully digitally onboarded, yes.
End to end. That's a good number for a month.
Thank you. Any other question from the audience? We do have a Q&A session at the end, so you can ask questions at the end.
Yeah, there is one question here, like the screen it showed like it's part of 5 minutes for you. Other digital bank back page 6.1 minutes. Here it is. What's the difference here? Why like using the same technology, everything? Why you see some little bit differences? But try to understand.
Very good question, because I think it's the three pillars that I talked about: the user experience, the innovation, and reprocessing your journey, and of course the technology itself. So the technology is one pillar, which is, for example, we are using Backspace. However, if you come and ask a customer to input, for example, his employer, so instead of him typing, if you do a selection, this is by itself reducing number of seconds that going to be spent filling these, for example, fields. So that kind of level that we have reached to, where basically it's not about technology, it's not about the process as is, it's about how to focus on improving the customer experience after approval. And again, every single page you see on our digital onboarding is being validated by real customers and non-customers as well, because we still target different personas. So we interview real customers, and we have a huge team looking into even how complex are for customers to click next or to enter this, or if they have any question, if it is not intuitive, then this is we fail in the design itself. So yes, same technology, but if you don't focus on UX, then I believe you might end up even more than others as well.
Thank you.
Thank you again. And Ruti, as part of when we sort of partner with banks, we also have UX research engineers in the squad. So when we're optimizing these journeys, we ensure that as Backbase, we can also create a value in order to make it as short as possible with a nice But of course, a lot has to be attributed to the banks and as well, and they also have to take the liberty to make it happen. So I think we're almost there with your session, but I think it'll be interesting to have your thoughts on what's next and how you, from an app perspective, how would you ensure that retention is done and the most value is given to your customers?
Yes, I think that was our minimum viable product. It's our MVP. That went live. It was basics, features, including some of features that we didn't have, like digital onboarding and origination. So that was the main driver, is to start somewhere and keep on releasing new features. We have releases coming in next month with a lot of new features. But our focus on a long-term journeys and features that we are focusing on is mainly related to our personas. So our personas as users, they would like to do more savings, so we are starting to think about keeping the change. We are thinking about having pockets. build multiple pockets, you do saving for your car, for your travel and such. We have a loyalty program coming in, different system, however, huge integrations coming with our retail banking app. And we have as well a managed family account, where basically you can manage your kids' account, your wife, she agrees of course, but it's a family account management, something that also in the pipeline.
Nice. I think this is out of my personal curiosity. In terms of having an agile working environment in the bank, and especially NDB moving from a very traditional sort of way of working, how challenging was that for you guys?
Yes, I think one of the main maybe topics I mentioned earlier is the culture part of the culture is very important when you come and bring a couple of people to work on Sprint or Agile, but the people around this team are not working in the same culture, on the same pace, then you have a bigger problem. And this is, I mean, you cannot build an application in a silo. You have to integrate with your core, you have to integrate with your cloud systems, with your security, with operation risk. It's a huge. So the team are not in that direction, they don't have that mindset, then you will not be able to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And this is a very important topic, and it is one of the major points that you have to focus on. Is not the technology, it's a culture. So you have to have that startup mindset. Let's have the team self-manage, let people work together, have a Scrum Master that solve developer issues, have a developer talk to each other. So it's not the technology itself, it's a culture that you really have buy-in in. And I would emphasize on culture because that was one of our main struggles. NDB, as you mentioned, is an old first local bank in Bahrain. It's a national bank. A lot of bureaucracy. When we joined, there was a new management joined back in early 2017 when we started the transformation of NDB. So it wasn't easy to convince people that working on a time and material concept is the way forward, or if you thought that you have to meet a customer to validate if this is a go or no-go feature, that wasn't really easy for us to convince the team. So it takes time, but you have to start. You have to, and this is what happened to us. Once we delivered Backbase or our new mobile banking, people thought, oh yes, this is a role model of a digital bank. So the team that are working on a digital platform now being became an example of the way that NDB wanted to be.
Sunny, would you like to repeat your question, please?
Yeah, I was asking on your digital onboarding, are you primarily focusing on CASA or you're doing for lending products as well?
Sorry, the voice is not really clear. I didn't get the question. Can you repeat it?
So the question is, in the current state of your app, is the onboarding primarily for CASA or is it also for other lending products?
No, it's primarily for CASA. And we are about to release it next month, or actually maybe end of this month, the origination for loans as well, and credit cards.
Yeah. I think the question for me, do you see a difference in the quality of customers that you onboarded digitally, as opposed to the quality of customers that you onboarded through face-to-face or branch channels?
I think it's too early for me to answer this question. It's been just one month almost. But however, we can see, I mean, you have to have a different KPIs when it comes to onboarding. One of major one is the amount of deposit these people put in your systems. Could be, you have to monitor this very closely. Thanks. I mean, we have a good amount of people depositing in this, and we see that these people are really. It could be because of our marketing campaign that we are doing, but however, we see that there are people who are depositing more than the average of our current customer. So we see some changes, but I believe it's too early. It's been just a month, but I can share that with you maybe in a couple of months from now.
Thanks.
My question,
Yeah,
my question was just to check on conversion rate and the cost of acquisition through this versus face-to-face acquisition. So what is the cost of acquisition for these two digital versus, and how does it compare to your feet on the street?
Our conversion rate is we've looked into the average onboarding for our normal branches was around 4 per branch, and this one jumped to 10. So I can see there is a huge jump in the digital onboarding
Cost
per day.
Cost per acquisition. I'm asking cost as well. Cost of acquisition versus digital acquisition versus non-digital.
Yes, of course, we've done this analysis. I don't have the numbers right now. We've done that analysis, how much it's going to cost us opening an account. It's not an easy exercise, that to be very honest with you, because we calculate every single aspect of digital onboarding. However, it's a huge reduction opening an account digitally. I have that analysis, but I don't have the numbers right now.
Sorry, Ali, speaking about the challenges that you spoke about, how much it impacted the overall timelines of the whole project from going live?
How much what, sorry?
Impacted the whole overall timelines of project implementation. And how you treated out the internal complications and challenges inside, like with risk and security and overall?
We had a lot of challenges, to be honest. I'll tell you some of them. First of all, we used to work on a spaghetti mode, where every single system is connected to every single system, and every system is connected to the other one. So it was crazy when it comes to integration. So what we had to do is to introduce a middleware in between, an API management layer, where basically the connectivity goes through the API. We introduced microservices architecture, where basically, again, this is a skill sets that we don't have. So we introduced DevOps. So it's kind of an iceberg, where basically you see it's a digital app, but there are multiple projects and activities happen beneath that. But if you talk about development, just as a development of the app itself, it took us around 14 or 16 months. We decided to have more time of testing. That's why we take our time to go live with it. We started November 2019, and we went live January 2021. So it's kind of like 14 months.
So just to follow on that, Ali, if you could probably share, I think thanks for sharing your journey. I think it's a very good points there. If you could also share if there were regulatory compliance challenges that you went through and how you navigated and overcome all of those. Because I think that's really part when you're shifting your mode from a branch to a digital, full steam digital journey, I think there are lots of dots and crosses that you need to ensure that it's fully compliant, right? So if you could share a few points there, that would be very helpful for us. Thank you.
Sure. Our central bank of Bahrain is a pioneer when it comes to fintech and technologies. They are the ones who always come up and open the platform for the banks and fintechs in Bahrain. So we have a lot of regulations that came out, which is the PDPL, which is equivalent to the GDPR. We have open banking regulations in Bahrain, and we are the first country, maybe in the region, to come up with open banking regulations. So when it comes to innovation around technologies, they are very supportive. So we have started integration with our eKYC. So if you want to onboard and the customer already been onboarded somewhere else, so we have a central organization that can update the KYC of the customer. So the number of interactions with the customer itself goes less because you can pull information from that central eKYC. So when it comes to regulation, we've, it's back and forth, right? You try from the bank perspective to reduce number of steps. You try to eliminate a couple of questions. They push back and so. So but really, to be honest, they help us a lot on when it comes. When you open an account in a branch, you have to have 2 IDs, which is a passport and the CPR. We call it the CPR, which is the local identity card. But we say, listen, we don't need a passport because we can pull this information from the eKYC. At the beginning, they said no, but when we tried and pushed back, I think they were very flexible and they allowed us to open an account with one identity or one identity card. So yes, sometimes they gave you some hard time, but Bahrain, as a Bahrain, I think our central bank is very flexible and they are cooperative and they support people who comes with the new ideas and initiatives when it comes to fintech and technologies and digital transformation.
Hi Ali, just on the same topic, does the application handle all scenario and all type of customer, like low risk, high risk, or only if you will reach some point of time that you will tell the customer you have to go to the branch?
Yes, yes. For example, if you are politically exposed person, then you have to go to the branch. We did not automate this.
What we have heard from Ali, I think we all agree that we are in a very different time for financial services. I would say, like we used to talk about branches, I think branches become your mobile phone is your branch today. And I think it's going on like this. I think we have lots of great initiatives happening, and I think slowly we'll have only branches on our mobile phones. We don't need to really to travel to the branch. I think it's very important here to see how our area is going. I believe number of districts is growing. I think more than 500 we are having. We have seen lots of investment going in open banking. I think I'm really interested to see how we can achieve the investment $30 million in back. So I think things are changing well. I think one of the things we need to start to hear in this discussion now, how you move from being normal banking to this kind of shape of it. Some banks, which are much removed, they have another, you get your own new branding, new things and so on. I think Crack Bank is doing something with the new open banking companies and the standard charge and so on. So I think this, you have to do some kind of great work inside, because if you are moving from a monolith architecture to a platform, today we know about platform, super apps, and you mentioned in the beginning, you don't need to go to an account, balance or fill a cost and back. You need to use this for your many things around. So from your point of view as professional banks and leaders, how you move from being normal banking to this status which you are trying to do platform ecosystem partners in account. So if you someone would like to take it and give us that maybe some of the chart that you will do that.
Yeah, sure. So look, I think that it's a journey, and like you rightly say, different banks have approached it differently. There are a number of banks that, especially the mega banks, that decided to say, let's start a separate digital bank, completely different. Standard Chartered, we have done that as well. For example, in Hong Kong, we've launched MOX. It's completely different. You know, it's on the cloud platform, different, core banking system and everything else, very, very different. And what we have seen is that it's more efficient, able to make changes very quickly, because with the legacy systems, I mean, we have to admit it, this is 50-year-old technology. And making a change, you have to, bring in a lot of APIs, you have to, and it takes a long time, just to get it done. So one of the approaches is that. And the other approach is you build another, not a different brand, same brand, which we have done, for example, like in Africa. It's Standard Chartered, SC Mobile, the same branding, same name and everything else, but then you begin acquiring on that platform. At the same time, you also allow for migration from the legacy system into the digital platform. And that in itself is, you have to accept it, it's not going to happen overnight. It's over time, you migrate plans and you build that. But what we are seeing is that whichever way that, approach that is taken, the growth on the digital side is much, much faster. Now, what is that doing to, for example, the market? From our observation, is that at the very beginning, the neo banks, fully digital, new, without any support or backing of the mega banks, they were really coming in so strongly and maybe even as a threat, and we're seeing it in that way. But over time, the mega banks are actually beginning to catch up, and they have got the muscles. They've got not only Standard Chartered. I'm talking about all the big banks. They can be able to invest in that and grow that very, very fast. And also, what we saw is that liquidity over this period of time moved from the smaller neobanks back into the mega banks, because that's where there's more loyalty, more trust, and everything else. So it's really an exciting period that we are in, and I can see that there's no question about it that whether you own your own digital, separate bank or combined, that's where the direction of the market is going.
So even regionally it can differ. We are taking something different from a different region and so on.
Absolutely.
Yes, firstly, just to add to what Sani has mentioned, I think most of the banks nowadays, no one is resisting the idea of going digital, but they follow a different approach. Yeah. Because we all have employed the same chief transformation officer, Mr. COVID-19, that is pushing all banks to go digital. Now, to share with the audience the UEB journey, when we decided to embark on our digital journey, we thought, shall we go fully digital? Shall we develop like a new bank that leverages on our existence and systems? Or shall we do a hybrid model, which we call the challenger bank model, where we have limited number of branches. We digitize the whole client journeys and the life cycle, as well as focus on event banking events and triggers to do initiating. So we hired, no bank can rely purely on their internal IT department. So we went to the regional fintechs to develop at least a strategy paper where we're going to implement. Furthermore, we came up with problem statements, and we're running 2 hackathons in collaboration with the universities as well as incubators. For example, Shira, that is managed by Najla Al-Madfa and the government of Sharjah. And you'll be surprised with how innovative the new generation and the students of the university can solve the problems that we have, and even come up with the new ideas. For example, gamification, on youth apps, on teaching the unbankable segment, on basic financial method. Now, we share the same view that you mentioned. Is we don't want to be the fashionista of banks. Okay, let's have the best core banking. Let's have that company to develop the Informatica system, get the Tableau and so on, without proper integration. We gonna go with the minimum viable product, but again, the whole focus and the end journey is the open banking and how to monetize on our APIs. So yes, the bank is gonna invest now on the digitization, but the whole idea is to monetize on our APIs and to push. For example, the way we envisage this, we can have one source of truth, one platform where we can gather the client's basic information, KYC data. We're blessed in UAE that, for example, the Emirates ID can fetch 88 fields, so it's more than enough for banks and non-banks to benefit from these fields. And then we push them on a smart contract. You cannot mute them, immutable, okay, on the chain. And in the future, the same client who logs in our mobile banking can opt to open, get a SIM card from Etisalat. Okay, so we fetch certain data, and he can or she can get this product, okay, or service using our app. The same thing, we are in collaboration with the initial talks with one of the banks in Jordan that run a similar projects, Anamin, or the Mean World by Ahli Bank of Jordan. So for clients who want to open again another relationship cross-border in other countries with just a push of a button, they can do that. So these are kind of ideas that we have.
That's good. So you went into the collaboration mode, I believe. It's really good that
yes.
You are one of the early banks which work with fintechs. I think we have a few banks here also start working with fintechs, which is, I think the beginning it was like a little campaign, it's a me or you, and I think we found it, we have to collaborate, I think. What about one thing new? I think this is really interesting. We have two major banks, you and Milen, and Indy keeps coming soon, and others, and I think Iraq is doing something else now. From your point of view, how this idea came, how you implemented it, and how the success from being a new platform and so on. Platform banking.
Very quickly, just to extend what my friend said, there are three models that are there in the banking industry. One are the native digital banks, like the Revolut, the Monzo, etc., who start off as being a digital bank. The second is banks like us, where we have a mainstream bank and then we start the digital arm, which is like much technical. And the third is the banks digitizing themselves, the big banks digitizing themselves. Now, all these seem very similar, but they are extraordinarily different in terms of mindset, in terms of approach, in terms of the way they are evaluated as well. Across all these aspects, they're very different. The difference being that in the case of the first one that I explained, the native bank, they are talking about valuations, they're talking about number of customers, they're talking about number of logins. There is not much focus on how much money has the bank made in the profitability. Of course, there is, but that takes a bit of a backseat. Right? For example, today Revolut is valued at $10 billion. It hasn't made money for the last 6 years. So the concept of valuation is very different there. In the case of the mainstream bank that starts a digital arm, it's a bit confused in the sense that the digital arm starts to do differently in terms of acquiring customers, scale, etc. The customer quality and categories are a bit different. But then the analog mindset, the analog costs, the analog processes start to impact the digital bank.
Yes.
And the third one is the digitizing the bank itself, where the approach again is very different. They're very happy saying, I've digitized this journey, I've got efficiencies from this journey and so on, which is a bit different from how the second and the first buckets are evaluated. So each of these look very similar as a headline, but when you go down deeper, each one has a different set of assets.
Which one can bring a value to the bank and to the consumer out of this thing? Do you think there is one really can sustain for a long time more than another? Could there be?
I think eventually banks will become digital.
Yeah.
This mainstream bank with the brick and mortar presence, etc., is only there for a little while. It's a matter of time before they tend to disappear or at least definitely take a back seat. So that is definitely going to happen because this is the generation that's grown on the app. If you're using our app for groceries, for hiring cabs, for doing everything else in life, it is quite absurd to believe that only for banking we'll go and visit a branch. Right? So this is the way life is going to be. Of course, there will be certain transactions for which customers would need to talk to bankers and talk to service providers, but that is going to be more and more less number.
And maybe to add, we're talking a lot about technology and pick up by customers, etc. But there's an area that's a little bit underestimated, which is the organizational changes that are needed, right? Because no one has the right strategy, and everything is changing very fast, right? And I think that is a thing that banks really need to learn. Being it like if you're a real neobank, of course you are digital by nature and agile by nature, and you have hired people in such a way that you can. But if you want to digitize an existing bank, it is not only about the technology. It's really about where does the decision making take place, how are people working together, empowering your people to make decisions bottom up instead of top down, and that's I believe the biggest challenge to marry those two worlds. Right? Because if you still have the decision making on the top and everything is about the P&L and the numbers, and when you talk to your manager, you talk about, okay, we have to improve the customer experience, and the first question is how much money will you make? That's a difficult discussion. And if you want to hire the right talent as well in an organization, because it's all about having the right designers, having the right data analysts and data engineers, you need to have the right front-end engineers, back-end engineers. These guys can work everywhere. They can work in every e-commerce company. Why would they come and work for a bank where they will be choked in the rules and regulations around banking? So I think that is the biggest challenge. Technology, everyone can copy that, but the culture in the organization is really different.
Leadership vision is very important.
Yes,
because if you're one only, then so what?
And that's the only thing where you can also, I think, set yourself apart from your competitors, because that can be copied. Culture and people cannot be copied easily. What you can copy is technology and looking at the screen and building the same screen. Sure. But what happens tomorrow? If you need to change fast, how will you change? Do you need 3 months to decide on a business case, or 6 months and then decide, or can the team decide in a matter of days? So that's a little bit of a.
When I ask about the number of steps at the time, it's very clear. You use the same technology. 28 steps here, 31 here, different time. So I think I used to say a word. People say digital transformation. I said you have to say transform digitally. So you need to transform first before digital. The transformation should be the one you are thinking and focusing on. But I need to ask you here, because I could see that most of the challenger banks, the new banks and all, they work on only acquiring customer and payment, and that's it. Honestly, I couldn't see. You asked about the finance, banking business is really the most of finance. But the middle payment or whatever is something really, I would say, even we have lots of good companies here, Exchange is doing it very well. But now the core of banking is financing and deposits. But I could see that most of challenger banks and so on, they are very weak. They are not able to touch on this one because you need to manage your liquidity and so on. So from this point of view, our challenger banks are able to do the new banks to go to the whole spectrum of banking. Can they do the financing and do it? Can they do the deposits and so on? Can they do the same like banking is doing today? Or do you think if this is couldn't happy with this banks which is coming like a Revolt or like Monzo and others?
I think I'm sure they can do.
They can do.
Because this is a very risk hungry and a risk averse segment. Banks are a bit cautious in terms of offering the whole suite to start with. CASA is a safe product where the customer puts his own money.
Yes.
So it's a safe way to start. But as they evolve and as they get a critical mass of customers and they understand the behavior of those customers, they will offer innovative products which will include lending.
The only thing is the most important things. The customer's journey, the customer's experience.
True.
How you can see it, because customers' requirements should be very much fulfilled before we look at the digital and financing and fill our own requirements as a banking, because we always think the customer's happiness. So through that journey, did we fill his requirements? This is number one. In one touch, did he reach to get his account to be done, to be active, and then again he get his credit card to be activations. If there is any complaints with the customer, that he get back to him in because we're doing this in the processing now with our system, CRM, it's very much advanced. The customer he put his inquiry or his about the complaint. Inquiry, it comes to us directly. Instead, and again, at the same time, we resolve this issue and be done immediately. So like those are very important, first of all, before we get to that. to that. If he's taking money or not, if he's going to do that or not. So it's very important to look at his requirements and his happiness. We put all these things as the first, the major important things, as the first one. Then you can look at the financially. You're going to put the money with us. How do you deposit? Is the account going to be Kaza, like an account or saving account, or you put with us at Wakala or those things? It comes in the second stage. But first of all, because now working in some projects nowadays, you have to those things and inquiries. Number one, what he wants. His account to be in his hand immediately. His credit card. To apply for the credit card instantly, we issue his card, comes back. In the ATM, he requests everything through the ATM. Activations, checkbook, everything comes through the ATM. This is one of the times we're looking after it. And also we are doing looking after the motor banking. And Rahman is looking after the motor banking. Those mobile comes everywhere. So we are distributing this again, and the car goes everywhere in all our events. So those things, you can reach the customer wherever he is.
So the customer journey mapping, I think, is become very. I think we didn't hear it about the being in banking for a long time, but we didn't hear about it before. Really, we didn't talk about what the customer journey and personas and so on. Yeah. I think this came from later on, a few years back. We started thinking about a customer journey mapping and so on. So that's why maybe the new banks came with all of this great things, number of steps, number of fields. You've been asking how many fields and so on. All of this really we didn't have it before. So I think that this is the transformation happening today.
As you mentioned, okay, you need to transform digitally before the digital transformation. You know what's happening at banks. I'll share my own experience. We start revising our lending policies, credit policies, even the compliance policies to fit them. Okay, and for the first time we started to give a close look at the entire journey, the number of screens. You will really need to know that information to bother the customer with that field. So the whole process, started before because of the digital initiative. We developed a team to look after the lead management, and the Six Sigma, and to review the whole, to do process mapping, to be fit and lean enough and agile to transform digitally. So this is the first step. To answer your question, most of the banks again goes through the minimum viable product, which is easier to implement. Again, because the credit policies were not fit, or there was a lot of judgmental calls, so the credit decisioning itself couldn't be automated. Nowadays, I'm sure all banks are reviewing even their credit policies, so to make them fit into a binary system, 0-1, yes or no, with minimal again judgmental calls, so it can go digitally. Now, a bigger challenge is not the credit or the loan origination, it's the wealth management aspects. How to you have the assets, you have the liabilities, but also in European terms you have the NFI, the non-funded income. How to onboard clients and to fulfill their wealth management needs digitally is the next goal thing. For example, I like what Standard Chartered has done. You can fill the whole suitability form and do the client risk profiling online. But this is just to get you in. Now, what's the next step? Do you develop your own order management system? Do you give the rights to the clients to die, to do it yourself? These are the big questions in the field of wealth management.
But just to add to that, so starting from, and that's a very valid point. So starting from December, now on wealth management that we have enabled, so you can actually do on your own. You can choose, which mutual funds to get in, and within 3 minutes it's done. You get it, and you can see your profile. You can see even how that is performing. But I think and just to get back to the point that was raised, the client experience journey, that one is very, very critical. And also back to another point that was mentioned in terms of how the organization is structured behind the digital agenda. I mean, I've been in the retail space for the past 18 years and worked in different markets and seeing this, developing and everything else. In many of the markets and many of the institutions today, we have to accept it. We haven't yet transformed. The mindset has not yet. The way the organizations work, we have not. You'll find there will be a very good compliance guy somewhere that has very little knowledge about the digital platforms and how they work, and how we can be able to map these requirements to digitally.
True.
you have an audit guy that is still coming in from, the old generation, coming in and auditing almost in the old way, not understanding how should the digital journey be, what should be, how can we be able to transform collectively together. And to be honest, we have to accept it as well, that some of the regulations are still old-fashioned, and therefore they've expected that we comply to that. But how do we carry everyone along? And there's some areas which does not even have to wait for regulation to change. If a client experience team, their operating model is still going to visit branches, checking what is happening and everything else, and they have never visited the journey on the digital platform, they are working in a completely different world.
Yes.
They don't even know, what are the complaints, what are the issues, what are the pain points. Clients are dropping off. In fact, some of the data shows that, especially the millennials, 47% of them, they drop off the journey. They cannot go to the next stage. They just get frustrated. And so
it brings you to your point. It has to be a holistic customer approach, right? So you can't do it in isolation where you look at only the digital journey and miss the other parts of the journey. Because believe it or not, customers nowadays continue to evolve as well in the channels of choice. They go to your branch, they go to city phone, they go to a phone banking, they go to email conversation banking. So all of those have to be taken into consideration.
This is only approach for whatever.
So there's no, in my view, there's no one size fits all, right? So you have wealth management, we have a very sophisticated clients that would probably still continue to believe that human interaction is critical for them to invest. To position themselves, right, for the bank of choice, right? So I think the criticality of it is we have to be probably client obsessed, customer centric in every approach that we do, whether it's a branch interaction, whether it's a digital interaction, mobile interaction, phone interaction, and how do we meld all of those into one super client experience, I call it. So it answers the question whether you're moving forward or still stuck in the time, right, where you feel. So, but I agree 100% to your point that compliance audit are still stuck somewhere because probably their practice has always been like that. And the digital natives or people that are interested in moving forward with mobile banking, all of those APIs, technology-driven enhancement, don't want to go there as a practice. So who are those people that will definitely understand technology and its purpose, enabling it to the next level? Is it also a shift, a cultural shift that has to happen in those areas, right? Compliance, legal, audit,